Hey everyone, and welcome to our third session of the 2026 Child Abuse Prevention Month virtual series. We're so glad that you could join us today. My name is Frankie Piaz, and I'm interning this semester with Families Flourish ND. There are just a few quick housekeeping items before we get started. We ask that you please remain muted during this session. We will do our best to leave time for questions at the end. If we are unable to get to all questions, Lindsay will also be sharing her contact information at the end. If you would like a certificate of attendance, you will need to complete a brief survey at the end of the session. I will share the survey link in the chat, and Lindsay will also display a QR code at the conclusion of today's presentation. Without further delay, I will turn it over to Lindsay.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's so good to see you all. I see our number, more and more people are joining all the time. So great that you're here today, and I'm so excited to share the next hour with you. As Frankie said, my name is Lindsay Burkhart. I serve as the Director of Prevention Initiatives at Families Flourish ND. I'm so excited to be here today and to be able to talk to you about such an important topic. This session, it's one of my favorites. It grew out of my love of early childhood education, number one, my role as a mom, and then my background in child sexual abuse prevention education. And it all kind of came together, and here is this session. I believe that not only is teaching and nurturing skills like autonomy, consent, body awareness in children a part of just their healthy development, but it's also a critical layer of protection against sexual abuse. Research shows that children who are raised with opportunities to practice these skills are more likely to recognize unsafe situations, assert boundaries, and seek help. By the end of our session today, my hope is that you'll leave with tools to help children feel safe, respected, and empowered. But I can't just stop there. There's something I find really important to also add to that. I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge something really important, that abuse is never a child's fault, ever. Nothing a child does or doesn't do causes abuse, and children are never responsible for preventing it. Today's session focuses on building autonomy, body awareness, early consent skills, but these are not tasks that we give to children and say, here, now keep yourself safe. No, safety is the responsibility of adults and systems, not children. I'll share a really brief introduction with you next and tell you a little bit more about me and my why. But this is our agenda for the next hour. We have a lot to cover. So I'm just gonna get right into it. My background is in early childhood education. I've worn multiple professional hats. I was a teacher with Head Start for many years and held several jobs within the Head Start world, from a teacher, family support, education coordinator, project director. I've also worked in victim services. So I worked with victims of juvenile criminal cases for a county attorney's office and also worked with restorative justice. Prior to my current role, my most recent hat I wore was I was the director of the North Dakota Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Task Force. And I wore that hat up until the task force dissolved in June of 2025. I'm a mom. I'm a mom to four kind, smart, beautiful girls. I'm also a community volunteer. I volunteer with a program called Bio Girls. You'll see me there with my daughter. I actually just received my 5th year recognition. I've been a volunteer for 5 years, so that's so exciting. If you're not familiar with what Bio Girls is, it's an organization with a mission of improving the self-esteem of adolescent girls, and I'm so passionate about it. I also volunteer here and there with my daughter at the Humane Society of the Lakes. We go and play with all the kitties that are looking for homes. We go to PetSmart in our local community. It's really fun. My daughter gets to play with and socialize with all the cats. You'll see that giant cat on screen. That was one of them. And I get to scoop the cat boxes. So I'm not sure that we got I didn't get a very good end of that deal, but and then I'm also, a fun fact, I'm an ordained minister. I actually am officiating my 4th wedding tomorrow. So I have a lot of hats that I wear, and they're all great, and I'm so grateful for all I get to do. I do this work for many reasons. For all of our children across North Dakota, for my girls, of course, for the survivors in my life who I love, and for survivors everywhere. There are an estimated 42 million adult survivors across the United States today. The next few slides include information that can be difficult to hear, and it can bring up strong emotions. And it could be connected to personal experiences, work situations you've encountered, or simply just the weight of the topic. Please take care of yourself in whatever way you need. I don't know if you, maybe it's nice where you are, go step outside, get some fresh air, open a window, take a break, listen in whatever way feels right for you. I'll go over the next few slides pretty quick because I want to really get into the meat of our session today. But first, we're going to start by talking about a little bit about child sexual abuse. And you might be thinking like, hold up, Lindsay, I didn't come today to talk about this. And I know you didn't. But this session was created as a protective measure against child sexual abuse. Teaching children about bodies, their boundaries, their right to safety. It's not just good for their development, like I said when we first started, but it's also prevention and action. These skills really matter and they can make a really big difference. So we're going to start by defining what child sexual abuse is. So we're all grounded in the same definition. So child sexual abuse, according to the North Dakota Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Task Force, is any interaction between a child and another person in which a child is used for sexual behaviors and activities through contact or non-contact behaviors. A child is anyone under the age of 18 years old. When we reference a person in our definition, we're referencing either an adult or another child. Contact abuse, physical contact abuse, involves any form of physical interaction with a child that's sexual in nature. And those non-contact behaviors, they don't include any sort of physical touch, but they can be just as harmful. That includes things like voyeurism, exhibitionism. It could be also things like exposing a child to sexually explicit materials like pornography. The one thing that I really like to point out is that research shows that non-contact abuse is significantly linked to adolescent distress and a lower quality of life. These findings really reinforce the importance of recognizing non-contact abuse as a serious form of child sexual abuse. It's often easier to overlook or minimize, but the emotional and psychological toll, it's real, it's measurable, and it's deeply impactful. So now that we have this shared understanding of what child sexual abuse is, let's talk about the prevalence across North Dakota. So about 1 in every 10 children will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. This means that whether you work with children, you're a parent, you're a Sunday school teacher, you're a volunteer, you're just a member of the community, that it's highly likely that you know someone or so you know someone that has been or that is being sexually abused. But the truth about this is that many children wait to report or never report child sexual abuse. Therefore, those numbers that I just shared with you, they may underestimate the true scope of the issue. Some research estimates that up to 33% of victims never tell anyone that they were abused. And even if they do, it can take decades. That same study found that the average age of disclosure was 52 years old. So what keeps children from disclosing? I always like to, I include this information in many of my sessions because I think it's so important. And according to the National Blueprint to End Sexual Violence Against Children and Adolescents, it's because victims often feel, and feel free, put some in the chat box as well. I can't monitor that as well when I'm talking, but if you have some of those barriers to disclosure in mind, please use the chat box. But it can range from anything from confusion, shame and embarrassment, fear of getting in trouble. Maybe it's a conflicted feeling of loyalty to the abuser, fear of being shunned, labeled, or loved less, fear of being taken away from their home or destroying their family. And sometimes perpetrators may also threaten to physically harm the child if they tell, or harm their mom or their dad or someone that they care about, or even their family pet. More than one survivor has told me, Lindsay, I had no idea that what was happening to me wasn't okay. And this is also something that we need to understand because many children don't disclose abuse because they genuinely don't recognize it as abuse at the time. Research shows that a lack of understanding, especially when the abuser is someone trusted, is a major barrier to disclosure, which is why the skills that we're talking about today are so very important. These barriers to disclosure, all of them that we just talked about, remind us that the true scope of child sexual abuse may never fully be known. We're going to transition now and begin taking a deeper look at the protective skills that can truly make a difference. And if you maybe weren't here right away, you hopped on a little bit late, the one message that I shared right away that I want you to carry with you, please, is that children are never to blame. Children are never at fault when it comes to child sexual abuse. And I just want to say that because we're talking about skills today that are protective in nature, like skills for children. And those are things that we teach and educate children, but that does not mean that now you're responsible for keeping yourself safe. Children are never to blame. The more that I learned about abuse prevention the last several years, and then I learned more about protective factors. And then you combine that with my love of early childhood education and being a mom and raising children right now, I realized that we have a lot of power to keep children safe when we teach and practice a few foundational skills. Before we dive into those skills today, I want you to sit with this. You see those messages on screen. And I want you to think about what messages shaped the way you understood yourself as a child. What words played like background music in your home? We may have grown up in families where love was present, but emotional safety wasn't always understood. Maybe adults around us were doing the best they knew, but the tools often focused on things like silence, obedience, compliance, not consent, communication, connection. Children should be seen and not heard. Maybe you learned that your presence was welcome, but your voice wasn't. Because I said so, or questions treated as disrespect instead of curiosity. This one, I don't know if any of you heard this one. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. I see some heads shaking. Were feelings seen as a problem to shut down, not signals to understand? You're fine, that didn't hurt. You're fine, you're fine. Did adults tell you how you felt instead of asking? What about this one? I've been guilty of this as a mom. I'll admit it. Go give them a hug. Go give them a hug. Hug grandma goodbye. Don't be rude. Were you pushed to show affection that you didn't want to give? And what did that then teach about consent? We'll talk about that today too. Respect your elders. Respect your elders no matter what. Did respect mean that adults were always right, even if you felt unsafe? Messages like the messages that some of us heard throughout our childhoods and that you see on screen, they trained us to override our internal body cues and our boundaries. Some of you might be thinking, see, we have about 71 people on. Some of you might be thinking, well, I'm glad I was raised that way and not raised like kids today. Or if my parents wouldn't have been as strict, I would have turned out spoiled or I would have turned out like a brat. And what I'll say to that is that many of us adapted brilliantly. We became responsible and self-reliant. Look at me, I'm at work today, right? We turned out functional, but functional isn't always emotionally whole. Additionally, it's true that decades ago, we did not have access to today's education and information about trauma, attachment, brain science. And I would argue, I think intentions were often loving, but that impact was still real. I'm not here to blame anybody, but I think we're here to understand today because understanding is what it lets us choose differently. for the children in our lives and around us today. It's not letting me advance slides. Come on. There we go. We're going to talk about body awareness first. Children naturally develop body awareness through everyday play, through running, through climbing, through exploring their environment. Body awareness includes knowing where body parts are and how they move. Like, oh, look, my elbow's bent. My foot kicks. And for us, helping to develop body awareness, we should be teaching and using anatomically correct terms when we're with our children in our lives, during everyday routines, like, okay, let's go wash our hands. I'm going to help you with that scrape on your knee. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that in a moment about why that's so important. Body awareness also includes understanding how their body fits in the environment. So a child might discover that, oh, if I bend in a little ball like this, I can fit inside that box, or I need to bend my shoulders to fit through this doorway. And we can encourage activities like crawling through tunnels and dancing to help kids learn about moving their bodies in space. Additionally, body awareness is also a child's ability to notice and interpret signals from inside their bodies. Hunger, thirst, tiredness, some of those emotional states. These signals act like an internal guidance system or like a GPS, I tell my girls, guiding them toward what their body needs to feel safe and healthy. Children are born able to feel these signals, right? When their tummies are hungry, they cry, they make different cues, but they don't automatically know what those signals mean or how to respond. And because of this, they often need more adult support. And our role as adults is to help children trust and interpret these signals by validating feelings and teaching appropriate responses. Because when kids learn to trust these signals, they can recognize when something feels off, something feels uncomfortable, and respond appropriately, whether that means eating, resting, saying no if something feels uncomfortable or makes them feel uncomfortable. And one really great way to do this is to name children's feelings and sensations. Oh, your tummy probably feels empty. That means you're hungry, as an example of that. If we were together, I'd probably have you all start singing with me. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. At 24 months old, children are expected to know about 50 words. 50 words at 2 years old. And among those words are usually their body parts, right? Head, shoulders, knees and toes, my nose, my eyes, my mouth. From infancy, we teach children these words through games and rhymes and songs. But that practice often stops when we get to certain parts of the body. You know, words like penis, vulva, vagina, testicles, anus are treated as taboo. Some of you right now are like, ooh, Lindsay. You know, for generations, adults have avoided these anatomical terms, replacing them with nicknames, right? Pee-pee, wee-wee, cookie, flower. Those maybe feel more comfortable for us as adults or parents, but they can create real problems. Imagine teachers walking throughout her day in her classroom. She notices one of the students acting withdrawn, zoning out, and she checks in. And she said, "What's going on with you?" And the child says, "My uncle licked my cookie." To the teacher, just walking by, she might just say, "Oh, she's mad because she didn't get her snack last night." Doesn't sound automatically like a disclosure of abuse. No report is made. The child feels unheard despite doing exactly what we teach children to do, tell a safe adult. And that misunderstanding can have serious consequences. And teaching anatomical language doesn't have to be awkward or uncomfortable. It can be as simple as using other as we name other parts of the body. You know, this starts for me when my girls were really young during diaper changes or when they're in the bath. It's just normal language for us. Like, I'm wiping your vulva to help keep you clean. Normalizing this language reinforces that these body parts are not shameful. And it can be uncomfortable at first, and it might be for some people, but this knowledge reduces shame, improves communication, and can significantly lower the risk of abuse. And I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. This is a simple and powerful step towards creating safer environments for every child. And you see that statistic on screen. I think that's so important. Most children, 89%, can correctly name most of their body parts, their non-genital body parts. And only about 10% know the correct terms for their genitals. On the next slide, you're gonna hear a song sung by one of my daughters. She made it up. She's in the bathtub. Of course, you don't see anything, but you're gonna hear splashing, and it sounds like 6 foot tidal waves are going on in the bathroom. But I just want you to listen to how everyday normal this is, and this can be. There's captions, and I think for the most part, you'll be able to read them pretty good.
I think this is what it's going to be. You have your own flowers, I do too. You don't touch mine, and I don't touch yours. So I have my own, you have your own. They are mine, and you have yours. And you don't touch my body parts, and I don't touch yours. Because they're mine and so special, and you have something very special. And your closet are vulva, butt crack, nipples, armpits,
Your armpits?
yeah, but they cover up with you too.
Okay.
Belly.
Your body is very special.
And
And before anyone touches you, they should ask what?
you.
They should ask for your
Permission.
permission. That's right, girl.
Okay, so to be fair, I think she was about 6. So, armpits, we're still working on it, but I thought she did pretty good. In one of my favorite books about child sexual abuse prevention, Dr. Elizabeth Jeglick shares the following information. I'm gonna quote it for you. In one study, researchers interviewed 91 sex offenders who were convicted of molesting children. They asked various questions, and some reported that they were less likely to target children who knew the correct anatomical names for body parts, as they thought it might increase their risk of getting caught. These findings, these important findings, show us that by teaching children the correct names for body parts, we are not ruining their innocence. Rather, we're protecting it. And I couldn't agree more with her. When we build and support body awareness in children, we're supporting healthy development. In many, many ways, you see on screen, body awareness is foundational for motor skill development, coordination, their physical confidence, recognizing those physical sensations. It helps children connect their bodily experiences to emotions, which is essential for self-regulation and emotional literacy as they grow. And remember that internal guidance system, or their GPS. Children are born with that sensory awareness, right? Hunger, discomfort, pleasure, fear, but they need our support to understand and trust those signals. And when we validate their feelings, like it's okay to say no if you don't like that, or if it makes you feel uncomfortable, children learn to trust their bodies, which helps them set boundaries and speak up when something feels wrong. Body awareness is also linked to attention, spatial reasoning, and problem solving. And in wrapping up this first little section here, I want to emphasize that when we don't support their body awareness and we don't nurture those skills, they might struggle to recognize discomfort, not be able to tune into their bodies and what they're feeling, set boundaries, communicate when something feels wrong, and that can leave them more vulnerable and less likely to speak up. And I have a handout on body awareness that Frankie can throw in the chat box too. All right, autonomy. This is one of my favorites. My body belongs to me, and I decide who touches it and how. I have the right to say no if something feels uncomfortable. Autonomy in children builds confidence, and it helps strengthen neural pathways for planning and problem solving. And it reduces power struggles in everyday situations like transitions, chores, brushing teeth. And the reason for that is when children feel respected and heard, they're more willing to follow our guidance. I have seen that play out in my home. Autonomy is so powerful. And when children learn these concepts, they also become harder to manipulate or pressure as well. So how do we build autonomy in our children? I have two simple examples on screen. Though the first one is just to start with and encourage decision making, starting with small everyday choices. Like it could be picking out their clothes for that day, choosing a healthy snack when they get off the bus, and deciding what game to play in the classroom. And these moments teach children my voice matters. So if you're a parent and you have like a 5-year-old like me, I'm not going to let Emma just go to her drawers and pick out her outfit because she'll end up in like a dress and it's 20 below, right? So here's what this looks like. It looks like maybe mom picking out 2 or 3 outfits and Emma still gets the choice. So she's learning like, oh, my voice matters. I got to pick this. And then what we need to do is model respect for their autonomy. When we consistently honor their yes or their no, we show them that their choices are valid and their choices deserve respect. And that reinforces I'm in charge of my body. And this is something that I've thought a lot about over the years. Does anyone in this room, virtual room, maybe you can relate to this. So I have family in my life who have the best of intentions, but if my children don't want to hug, they might hear something like, oh, but you're going to make me so sad if you don't give me a hug, right? So at that point, it's up to me as mom to say, to have that conversation with that other adult, because we need to consistently honor their yes or their no, and show them that they're in charge and they get to make those decisions when it comes to their bodies. And when we combine these practices, right, we're encouraging decision making, we're modeling respect for their choices, we're listening to their yeses and their nos. They don't just hear that they're in charge of their bodies, they actually get to experience it. And think about how powerful that is for a child. That lived experience builds confidence, it builds safety and empowerment. And without that foundation, children might ignore discomfort or feel powerless to speak up, making them again more vulnerable to harm. So this is where we're going to start to bring a little bit of this together. Healthy boundaries for children are built on the foundational skills of body awareness and autonomy. You see that little equation there, right? Body awareness plus autonomy equals healthy boundaries. This is supported by child development research, trauma-informed practices, and prevention education models. When children develop body awareness, especially that trusting that internal guidance system, they begin to understand those internal signals and trust them, like discomfort, fear, joy. And then when we pair that with that autonomy, right, I'm in charge of my body, they learn that they have the right to act on these signals. And together, that these can help create healthy boundaries. They learn that they can say no, that they can ask for help, that they can even leave situations that don't feel safe. So when we talk about preventing harm and promoting safety, we're really talking about building these foundational skills early and consistently. One of the things I like to talk about too, as our children are growing, is empathy. Empathy fosters compassion and healthy relationships as children grow. And we really need to recognize that for children to thrive in relationships and to be able to practice consent, they also need to have empathy and the ability to understand others' feelings and boundaries. And I don't think we talk about this enough. Look at all the wonderful things that having empathy does. Empathy helps children respect others' boundaries. Empathy helps to reduce harmful behavior. Empathy supports consent and mutual respect, and empathy builds emotionally safe relationships. We're born with empathy. We're born with the building blocks for it. It's innate, but it's also learned. We're born with the capacity for it, but it needs nurturing to continue to develop as we grow. There was a 2025 systemic review, and it found that parental empathy, even sensitivity, positive socialization practices were directly linked with higher empathy in children. And that means that especially those caregivers around that child have a really powerful impact on how that empathy is developing in children. Some people just naturally may have lower empathy levels. Like it could be due to like personality traits, like more narcissistic traits. neurodevelopmental, psychological conditions, also trauma, chronic stress or neglect, that can also blunt that emotional responsiveness as well. The thing about empathy, it can act as a brake on aggression, right? When we can feel or understand another person's pain, we may be less likely to hurt them. However, a lack of empathy does not guarantee harmful behavior. That's not what I'm saying. And importantly, harmful acts can still occur when empathy exists, right? Think of like revenge, because behavior is influenced by many factors like stress, environment, power dynamics, learned patterns. But in wrapping up, I think empathy is such an important skill to develop in our children. Again, while we're born with the neurological foundations for it, it's a lifelong skill. It's shaped, it's refined, it's strengthened through our relationships, through modeling how we're acting and supportive caregiving. There's also I think I have a handout on empathy as well, so Frankie can possibly throw that in the chat as well. We're going to talk about consent now. This sometimes gets mixed up with autonomy. Autonomy and consent are pretty closely related because both of them involve choice and control. And you see the house on screen. This is how I like to think about autonomy and consent. It's a great example of the difference between the two, right? You look at the house autonomy, right? My house, my rules, my body, my rules. Consent, if I want to enter someone's house or if someone wants to come into my house, they need to knock and wait. They need to ask first. Autonomy is different because autonomy exists even if no one's at the door, right? This is always my house, my body. Consent happens because autonomy exists. You can only open or close the door because you're the owner. Consent is mutual. Autonomy is personal. So I really like to just talk through that because I think it can be so easy to merge the two together because they are so closely related. But talking a little bit more about consent, consent means giving clear permission for something to happen or agreeing to do something. And I don't know about you, but some of you on the call, perhaps like me, when you hear the word consent, your mind maybe jumps to sexual scenarios because that's where consent has been very loudly discussed. And that's largely cultural due to the past few decades where consent is framed really visibly around sexual assault prevention, right? But what we sometimes forget is that consent is a life skill. It's not just something related to sexual situations. And that framing sometimes overlooks how foundational consent is to everyday interactions, especially in child development. Consent is something that children can learn early, and it's a powerful tool to promote safety and respect. Consent matters because it builds safe, respectful relationships, and it helps prevent boundary violations and abuse. Some everyday examples of what consent can look like is very simple. Asking before giving hugs or even picking up a child, listening when a child says no or shows discomfort, narrating actions, especially for young or nonverbal children too, right? I'm gonna zip your coat now, or I'm gonna help put your socks on. Another way you can do this if you're a teacher and you work in the classroom is teaching kids to ask before borrowing items or teaching children to ask before they just join in a game. A little bit more about consent that's important for us to keep in mind is that consent is not a one-time agreement. It's something that can change at any point. Children need to know that saying yes does not lock them in forever. They can change their mind and that's okay. The other thing is silence is never consent. I was a kid that if something would have happened or something would have made me feel uncomfortable, I would have froze and I would have been silent. It's not consent. And those nonverbal cues like pulling away, crying, freezing, those nonverbal cues are valid forms of communication. And I think about this a lot because I see it in my home. We practice consent. We've practiced consent for many years now. My daughters are, just for perspective, they range in ages from 2 to 10 years old. And so the 2-year-old, 3 older big sisters, she's constantly like their little baby doll. They want to pick her up. They want to do everything with her. They want to put her places. And so this plays out in our house a lot where one of my girls will forget to ask consent. They'll just pick her up and Charlotte will go stiff and she'll start like screaming. And it's a very great time. It's a teachable moment to say, it looks like Charlotte doesn't want you to pick her up right now. And you forgot to ask her permission first, and then so then after we have that conversation, it's a great reminder that they need to ask Charlotte, because Charlotte's a person, right? Her body still belongs to her, even if she's two, and she can make those decisions. And so that's something that we practice all the time. And I think it's wildly important, even in those really, really young ages. After I talk about consent, I sometimes hear things like, okay, Lindsay, so you're telling me that if a kid says no to something, they just get what they want. That's a great question, but it's also a little bit of a misconception. Consent does not mean that children always get their way by any means. It means that we respect their autonomy, even when that decision isn't theirs to make. We still have responsibilities as caregivers, as teachers, as parents, as grandparents. We need to leave the park because we have to get to an appointment on time. We need to wear a helmet on our head when we're riding the bike. And if you don't want to wear your helmet, you don't get to ride your bike. Right? You need to brush your teeth because we need to keep our teeth healthy. And it's not uncommon for any of those situations, a child to say, no, I don't want to. I don't want to leave the park. I don't want to brush my teeth and I don't want to wear my helmet. But it's important that we teach our children that some decisions aren't theirs to make. On screen, you can see a scenario. I was a classroom teacher, so this scenario is like, I just felt so pulled to it because, this happened regularly. And in these situations, it shows how can we honor autonomy in these moments when children are saying no. So children, especially if it's nice out, I don't want to go inside. They definitely don't want to go inside. So instead of being like, too bad, it's time. We got to get inside so we can have snacks. Instead of doing that, maybe saying something like, I hear you. I want to stay outside too. It's so nice out today. It can be hard to stop playing. I can help you transition inside. And so instead of just picking up the child without warning, we're going to ask, we can give them a choice. Remember, autonomy. I can help you by picking you up, or you can hold my hand, or you can help me hold the door. Again, giving them some choice in it, and then honoring that decision once they make it. They don't want to do any of that, then you might say, okay, I'm going to pick you up then. Narrating what we're going to do, picking them up instead of saying, you're fine, let's go, it's not that big of a deal. Not telling the child how they feel. That's when we go in, we can empathize and say, it's okay to feel upset. I'm upset too. I wanted to stay outside, but we have to go inside. And I think what I like about this is validating, narrating, staying connected. We're showing them that their voice matters, even if that outcome doesn't change, even if they don't get to do what they want to do. And to be completely honest with you, I'm a mom of 4 girls. And if you think I can act like this every single time, that's just not possible, right? Sometimes it is like, no, we got to go, we're going. Too bad, we got to get in. And I think it's best to acknowledge that we're maybe not always going to get it right. I do my best to honor their choices and respect autonomy, but I can't pretend that every moment is perfect. And I'm not going to let perfect be the enemy of good. I like that a lot. It's unrealistic, and when I mess up, I acknowledge it with my girls. And I say, gosh, mom was kind of frustrated. Next time, I'm going to do better next time. And just having those real honest conversations as our children grow. So everything that we've discussed today, it helps to create a foundation where children feel safe, they feel heard, and they feel capable. And all of those are essential ingredients for confidence. And you remember that book I referenced earlier by Dr. Elizabeth Jeglick, that talked about that where they interviewed the convicted sex offenders. There's something else that she says in here that I really, really like, and I want to share it with you now. She says, self-confidence in a child can serve as a deterrent to offenders who often target children who they see as weak, troubled, needy, and who may lack the confidence to talk to adults. And all of the skills that we talked about today help to build confidence. Our role is to foster and nurture the skills that we've discussed today, to create spaces that feel safe, non-judgmental, where children can express themselves freely. And by integrating these skills early, children may grow into adults who can communicate clearly and assertively in relationships. I want that for my girls. Enjoy greater self-worth and emotional resilience. Yep, I want that too. Experience lower rates of victimization and improved mental health. That matters to me too. Leading to healthier communities, work relationships, healthier relationships overall. all of that matters to me for the future of my daughters, and I know it matters for the future of all of our children. This is my favorite part. This is my favorite part of every session. If you're on here today and you've seen me speak before, you're like, okay, I know she's going to talk about this, because I talk about it every time I speak, because I think it's wildly important for our children. But I want to be really clear before we start. Keeping children safe, I think this is the third time I've said it, from sexual abuse is the responsibility of adults. Never falls on children. But these simple, empowering skills that we're talking about today can make the difference in a child's life. The burden of prevention and protection must sit squarely on the shoulders of adults who are legally and morally responsible for the health and safety of children. But many adult survivors have told me that if they would have only known from the first inappropriate touch that it was wrong, how different their lives might have been. I had one survivor tell me, Lindsay, I was 12 years old when I knew what was happening to me was wrong. There have been interviews conducted with convicted sex offenders who have sexually abused children, and they have admitted that if they suspected children were being educated about body safety and boundaries, they would have reconsidered targeting them. This is important. And again, there are people that believe that by having these conversations, by teaching anatomically correct terms, by having body safety rules, that we're taking away a child's innocence. But again, I believe we're helping protect it. These are simple and empowering skills. And like I said, my daughters are 2 to 10, and the conversation maybe changes, right, as my girls get older, but this is what they look like. The first one, my body belongs to me. You remember autonomy. I decide who touches it and how, and I have the right to say no when things feel uncomfortable. Research identifies body autonomy as a key protective factor in preventing child sexual abuse. Often, despite protests of no, we instruct our children to give Mimi a hug or kiss Uncle goodbye. While well-intentioned, this has a negative effect of teaching children that they do not have control over their bodies. Rather, adults have control, and they get to make those decisions. And like I said early on, I was guilty of this before I knew what I know now. And we need to remember that our actions with children send really important messages. I have a 5-year-old, and she has the most contagious laugh. You guys, oh, it's just like, oh, I wish I could bottle it up. It's just like one of the best sounds in the world. And it's kind of one of those things where you start tickling her, and then it just gets like wild and loud. And she's like, stop, mommy. And I was like, oh, just a couple more. And then she, like, my 5-year-old sits up and she'll be like, stop, stop, mommy. And I'm like, oh, you're right, Emma, your body is yours. And I should have stopped right when you said it the first time. The reason I tell you guys this is because when we practice these skills, children remember them. It's not like one ear in, one ear out the other. These are skills that they become integrated into how our children believe about their bodies and themselves. And so important. The second rule, no means no. Let's tie that back to consent, teaching and practicing consent, helping children understand how to use their personal power in relationships. Children are capable of learning this concept. It says as early as preschool, but I would argue even earlier, especially when we start to recognize those nonverbal cues that they're valid. A turned head, a stiff body, stepping back is still a no, even if a child doesn't say that word out loud. A great example of this in my home is my one of my daughters has like these beautiful blue-green eyes. And I was like, oh, like admiring and like brushing the hair out of her face, looking at her beautiful freckles as she's looking up at me. And I lean down and I kiss her on the forehead, and she looks at me with those pretty eyes and she goes, mommy, you didn't ask consent. I was like, I didn't. Thank you. Mommy didn't, and I should have. Another thing, this has come up actually recently too. My daughter, we all sit together at night, just spending time together, and she comes in, the same daughter, and she's like, Mom, I don't know what to do because on the playground, and this is one of her best friends, my friend keeps coming up to me and hugging me, and she's not asking first. And so we're trying to problem solve how do we tell your friend that you want her to ask permission before she hugs you, and ask consent. So these conversations become so integrated and a part of our lives. The other one is teach children that a safe touch is one that safe touches make me feel loved, that make them feel warm, comfortable, cared for. Unsafe touches is any touch that makes them feel uncomfortable, not okay, confused, regardless of the intent behind it. I was actually in a meeting not too long ago and I heard someone use good touch, bad touch. And it's important that we start to like maybe step further away from using terms like that because these labels can be really confusing for young children. A touch involved in sexual abuse can physically feel good. Our bodies are wired to feel good to touch. So when children associate bad with the feeling itself, they may worry that they'll get in trouble if they speak up. It is confusing. So using safe and unsafe kind of helps children focus on how the touch makes them feel rather than trying to judge whether it's good or bad. The next one is secrets aren't for me. People who sexually abuse children heavily rely on children to keep their secrets. They'll say things like, this is our secret, or you can't tell anyone, use threats or guilt to keep children silent. And when children aren't taught how to distinguish between secrets and like private information, they may not know what to do or when to speak up. And so because of this, we also steer clear of using like good secrets or happy secrets. We took that word out of our vocabulary altogether at our house. And some people still choose to use it, and that's fine. But the reason we pulled those words out is because abusers have sometimes been known to groom children by using the terms happy, fun, our little secret. And so we shifted to surprises. You know, surprises are different. They feel more safe because it's something that'll be shared eventually with everyone, like a birthday party or a special gift. But to me, that wasn't enough. As a mom with a lot, like there's a lot going on, there needed to be more than just secrets and surprises. So what we use in our home is private information. And so my girls know that we have secrets, we have surprises, and then we have private information. And this is a conversation that we have had a lot on what qualifies as private information. Understanding that not everything needs to be shared with everybody. And it's about respecting another person's privacy and how that's kind and respectful. And so my girls and I have had lots of conversations about this. So let's just say one of their friends had an accident on the school bus. We would call that private information. Or a classmate who still needs a stuffy to fall asleep at night. We would call that private information. Actually, not too long ago, one of my daughters came into my room and she's like, Mom, so-and-so said that they're going to tell them this about bedtime. And so then it's a time for me to go to my girls and say, no, this is private information. This is not kind or respectful to share that. They're not secrets. They're not surprises. They're just personal moments that don't belong for us to share with everybody. But the key here is that if something ever feels confusing, scary, uncomfortable, it's always okay to tell our children to go to a safe adult. I messed up on this one too. One time my daughter was like, Mom, I'm hungry, you know, right when you're making supper and there's a lot going on. And I was like, okay, well, you can have a fruit snack. Don't tell your sisters. It's a secret because I don't want everyone to have a fruit snack before supper. And like she stops mid-tear of the fruit snacks and was like, Mom, but we don't keep secrets. And again, our children they'll get us right back in line if we mess up on these rules. The next one, we have 2 rules left, is my privates are private. Teaching anatomically correct terms, please. If there's one thing you leave with today, let that be it. It's essential to teach children the correct names of their private parts. And you know why that matters so much. We've already talked about that. But to go along with that, we should teach our children that no one should ever look at, touch, take pictures of their private parts of their body. And the same goes the other way around. Our children shouldn't look at, touch, take pictures of other people's privates as well. There would be limited exceptions, right? Like a primary care doctor at a well child visit may need to check the private area to make sure it's healthy and safe, or to apply medication. So just having those conversations with your children is really important, and talking to them before you go to a doctor's visit, for example, letting them know, well, I'll be in the room with you, you're safe, things like that. And then alongside private parts, always teaching privacy as well, encouraging privacy in every daily routines, going to the bathroom, getting dressed, bath time, shower time, changing our clothes. Our bodies are special and they deserve privacy. Privacy is not about shame, but it's about reinforcing autonomy and safety. I had a classroom teacher call me once because of this. My daughter was in preschool, you guys, like this is how important these skills are. My preschooler, what happened is I was sitting at work, I get a phone call from the school, and I'm like, oh, great, who puked or who threw up or whatever. So I answer it. And the teacher goes, Lindsay, Adeline wanted me to call you because when she was going to the bathroom today, one of her friends crawled underneath her stall, and she said she needed privacy. And so to go along with that, like my daughter's in preschool. We've talked about how our bodies are private and special and we deserve privacy. And even though it was her best friend, literally, who crawled under the stall to come hang out with her, my daughter still knew that, nope, this is a violation of my body safety rules. So she went to tell her teacher, which is exactly what I've told my girls, right? Tell a trusted adult. When my little girl got off the school bus that day, I have never, that little school bus pulled in the driveway, my little tiny preschooler got off the school bus with her backpack, and I have never been so proud of my girls. These rules, you guys, they matter. And these are conversations that we need to be having with our children. They're listening to us. And the last one is my safe adults help keep me safe. Working with our children to create a safety network. This is a small group, very intentional group of 3 to 5 adults. Again, very intentionally chosen to be a part of I call it their circle of protection. Explain to children that their safe adults are people they can go to anytime if they feel scared, confused, unsure. And these adults will listen to them, protect them, believe them, take their feelings seriously. If something ever feels wrong, you can go talk to, maybe it's their classroom teacher. What we always say is that if you pick 3 to 5, at least one of them should not be a family member. It's also important, though, for children to know that if one of their safe adults ever breaks one of their body safety rules, that no person's not a safe adult anymore, and that they need to come to another safe adult like you as their primary caregiver or another one, and tell one of their other safe adults right away. Couple things as we wrap this up. These conversations on body safety rules are not one-time lessons. They're not. The first time I talked to my daughter about pornography, she was 9 years old, because I knew pornography exposure happens young. And that was not the last time, although it was super uncomfortable the first time. I've continued that conversation, and guess what? It's gotten easier to talk to her about that. I think about it as far as like bike safety as well. We don't talk about wearing a helmet once and that's it. That's no different. And I know I've had more than one person approach me and just be like, I don't want to talk to my kid about this stuff because I don't want to scare them. And the truth is that we have to really carry in our hearts with us is that we decide if this conversation is scary or not. We control the narrative. We control the tone. We could make any conversation on safety scary, right? If you don't wear your bike helmet, you're going to fall off your bike. You might die, all right? Like, we can make anything scary. And so how we talk about it really matters. And we talk about it like we talk about crossing the street, or we wear a helmet to keep our brain safe, right? We talk about it in that same matter-of-fact, calm tone. Body safety conversations are the same: clear, calm, simple, not scary. The other thing to think about is, like, we know that children are great imitators. They're watching us all the time. I model boundaries with my girls all the time. Like, if I'm going to change my clothes, I'm like, mommy's changing and I deserve privacy. They want to be with me all the time. I'm not kidding you. We have separation issues. Like, they always want to be with me. I'm like, I'm going into the bathroom. I don't need 4 girls in here too, so really modeling that mommy deserves privacy too. My body, my rules. I don't want someone on my lap right now, and just really reinforcing consistency. They see that my body is mine too, just like their body belongs to them. I think, just in honor of time, I'll stop there, but I could talk about this all day long. So these are posters that I put on my daughter's walls. They're just there. They're at their eye level, and they're just really good reminders. And so you can make your own. You can go to our website and just print it off. And your rules might be a little different, and that's okay. The reason I put them on their bedroom walls is because, number one, their rules, they're integrated into everyday conversations, from the bath to riding in the car to just check-ins. When they're on their bedroom walls, it's a really good reminder for me. If I'm brushing Emma's hair, to just start to talk about, hey, do you remember our body safety rule about this? What would you do if this happened? It just is a really good signal for me to keep those conversations going. So here are some resources for you. Bridget Miranda, she's great. She was one of our first speakers. She was our first speaker for the CAT Month virtual series. She wrote Rosie's Big Secret. She's amazing. She's an amazing individual. So Rosie's Big Secret is her book. I wrote My Body Safety Rules Help Keep Me Safe. That's our dog Hank on the cover. That there's some symbolism there, right? German Shepherds are known for their safety and their protection. That's why Hank got to be a part of it. I have a girl going through puberty. So she has both of these books, the Girl's Body book and then Celebrate Your Body, because guess what? No one talked to me about getting my period. I remember where I was when I got it. No one talked to me about that. Do you know what? My daughter has a period pack in her backpack. We've had so many conversations about it because I'm going to bust down whatever silos or whatever blocks were in the way. And my children are not going to be afraid to talk to me about their bodies, about their private parts, about puberty, about no, let's bust those barriers down. Let's open these doors and make these conversations normal. I just don't think there's anything better that we can do. When I was pregnant with one of my daughters, I got the mommy. Well, how'd they get in there? I was like, I have no idea how to have this conversation. So I got the It's Not the Stork book. This one here. I don't know if you can see me circling it. I actually just found that my daughter, we will regularly donate to our local thrift store, and my kids donated it, so I don't have to buy it again. But I love that book as well, and it has anatomically correct drawings as well. When I first bought it, I had it on the counter, and my 7-year-old was flipping through it, and she saw the naked boy, and she goes, "Oh!" And then she called her sister over, because they hadn't seen that before. So then it was like that was a really good teachable moment to say, "Yep, that's a penis. That boys have a penis and girls have a vulva." So again, just really normalizing those conversations with our children. Here are some of those supportive resources for today on healthy boundaries, building body awareness, empathy building activities in our children. I think Frankie was going to put some of those in the chat. If she wasn't able to, I can email them out to you guys as well. I love worksheets with my girls. So I've created a word search. I also have a let's practice what would you do situation. A family friend wants you to give them a hug, but you don't feel comfortable. What would you do? I think that's really important because then our children know we've processed this out. Like I have a plan, and I always feel better when I have a plan. So I do a lot of that with my girls, talking about trusted adults. Here's yes, no activity, high-fiving your teacher, yes or no. Being forced to hug someone you don't want to, yes or no. Again, just really great ways to have conversations. So today we're not going to have time, but I have you know that there's so many things that we can do as adults to help keep our children safe. And today we don't have time to go over these strategies, but there's a lot of things from minimizing opportunity, paying attention, knowing the facts alone is preventative, building that network of safe adults. So there's so many things that we can do. Actually, in May, we are going to have a 1-hour session on grooming to learn what grooming is, how it happens, the signs to look for. So if you don't, any sessions I do are posted on Facebook. So please stay tuned on our Facebook page if you want to tune into that grooming one as well. Thank you so much, you guys. That was a lot of content in the last 58 minutes. If you want a certificate for today's session, you just have to either scan that QR code, or I think Frankie was going to put the link in our in the chat box. But are there any questions, Frankie? Otherwise, thank you guys so much. I just enjoy this. I enjoy these conversations, and they're so important. But Frankie, I'll turn it back over to you if there's any questions.
There were a couple questions in the chat. One was the book that you were referencing with the statistics.
Yep. And I think there's an updated one too, but this is it, Protecting Your Child from Sexual Abuse, written by Dr. Elizabeth Jeglick. She's amazing. She does so much on grooming research too. We're actually having her come to North Dakota in May to meet with our North Dakota Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Network. If you're not a part of that network and you want to be, just email me. There's my email address on screen. But here's that book.
There was another one also about someone said that they struggle with asking for permission to give their child a hug or kiss on the forehead since it's been something that they've been doing for a long time.
Yep. I know. And I think it's just a good practice. Like there, not every time am I like, oh, Elise, can mommy hug you? Oh, that would be really hard for me too. But I think it's like framing it like, oh, can mommy have a hug? Or, the other night, my daughter Emma did not want to give me a hug or a kiss goodnight. And I was like, oh, my heart was like, are you kidding me? Or what do you mean? Good night. I had a really hard time with it. I did respect her, no, of course, but I was like, are you sure? Like three, four times, like, are you okay? Good night. How about a high five? Um, but no, I think just in general, just practicing, when we can and just saying giving a hug and thanking them, I love you. And I think just practicing consent, like other like everyday times I would use it is like if I drop my daughter off at daycare and a friend's running up to hug her and they're just standing there, I might say, oh, can you ask Charlotte before you give her a hug? Or, oh, it looks like Charlotte doesn't want one. So I think, asking before every single interaction would be difficult. I agree with that. And I don't ask before everyone, but I do try to model it, and just make it a part of our lives as much as I can, and especially outside of our home, with others.
I
Thank
believe
you.
that was all the questions.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you guys next week at our session. It's going to be a good one. Thank you all so much. Bye, everybody.